Did you know that the City of Tampa has its own archives? The city is the keeper of all kinds of historic gems, from mayor's papers to old photographs and even archaeological artifacts. Recently, I stumbled onto something that I know you'll enjoy. Stay tuned and I'll share it with you in a minute. Welcome back. I'm Jennifer Dietz, Archives and Records Manager at the City of Tampa. Archives and Records is a division of the Tampa City Clerk's Office. Here we manage and store an extensive inventory of records, microfilm, photos, memorabilia, and artifacts. Sometimes we receive some pretty unique items, like this one. This is a 16mm reel of film containing the short film Flower of Tampa. It was made in 1958 and produced by Florida Film Studio with the Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce and the Cigar Manufacturing Association of Tampa. The film is significant because it provides a historical snapshot of Ybor City in the 1950s, as well as images of Tampa's airport, downtown area, Bayshore Boulevard, and Gasparilla Pirate Festival. It was given to the City of Tampa Archives by the Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce in the early 1990s as part of a large donation of photographs and other memorabilia relating to Tampa's history. But I really want to find out more about this film, so I'm going to visit Rodney Kite-Powell, local historian at the Tampa Bay History Center. We are here at the Tampa Bay History Center, and we are here with an expert on local history, Rodney Kite-Powell. Hi, Rodney.
Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
Good. Thanks so much for talking with us today.
Sure.
So we found this film, Flower of Tampa, in our City of Tampa archives. We know that it was made by the Tampa Chamber of Commerce in 1958, but we would really love to learn more about it. What can you tell us?
Well, the Tampa Chamber of Commerce did a lot of films like that in the 1950s, really trying to get people interested from outside of the area in coming to Tampa either to bring their business here or to come here on vacation. And the Flower of Tampa really focuses on the cigar industry in Ybor City and that side of Tampa's history, which at the time wasn't history, it was actually still things going on.
That's incredible. And obviously we're here at the History Center in the Cigar City area. What can you tell us about the cigar industry in Tampa in the 50s?
Well, the cigar industry by the 1950s had kind of fallen off a little bit from its heyday. The cigar industry started in Tampa in the 1880s with the arrival of two Spaniards, Vicente Martinez Ybor and Ignacio Aya. They both brought their cigar factories here to really a wilderness known as, it became known as Ybor City. And from there, it really just blossomed. You have the expansion of West Tampa in the 1890s, and brought in lots of immigrants to work in the cigar industry, Cubans, Spaniards, and later Italians. And by the 1920s, it was really the industry, not just in Tampa, but really in Florida.
And watching the film, there's so many landmarks in Tampa in the 1950s. We see the Columbia Restaurant, and we see the plant, what is now the Plant Museum, UT. How would you say Tampa has changed since the 1950s?
Well, it's been 60 years, and so that's what's really one of the neat things about this film is it shows Tampa really at the verge or just at the very beginning of that post-World War II boom. And so there's so much that we think of as old Tampa now that was still around and still very vibrant and kind of it's still at the edge of its heyday. And so you see places like Ybor City with cigar manufacturers still there. You see University of Tampa, but it's only been 20 years or so that it's been UT and we're kind of removed from it being the Tampa Bay Hotel. The Gasparilla that you see is in a lot of ways the same as it is today, but in a lot of ways different. And just the idea that the 1950s was really Tampa right at the edge, and even kind of at the edge of a decline in some ways. Downtown, which I think is featured in the film, really began to fall off as a destination for shopping and for staying when you're on your vacations here. And the suburbs really began to grow quite a bit. And so you don't really see that yet because it hadn't really happened yet. And so you see kind of Tampa at a really neat snapshot and really kind of a really neat crossroads in its history.
Yeah, it is. It's really fascinating to watch and to see the different changes that Tampa has gone through over that time period. So obviously the History Center has a fascinating display here on the cigar industry. Can you tell us more about what's at the History Center in addition to this display, and then maybe give us a little more background on this?
Sure. The History Center has 2 floors of permanent gallery space here, really chronicling the area's history, the region's history from the early Native American people all the way up to the present. And the first floor is reserved for really big stories. And so we have the contact period between the early Native Americans and the Europeans who arrived in the 1500s. We have the Seminole story, talking about the Seminole Wars and the Seminole people. And we also have the cigar story. It's an area we call Cigar City. So visitors come into a cigar store, which is where we're standing right now, and it's really a reflection of our collection and reflection on the importance of the industry in the city. We have thousands of pieces in our collection that relate to the cigar industry, mostly the marketing of cigars, and we thought when we were designing this, wow, we have enough stuff to build a cigar store, and so we did. And so everything you see here is an artifact, including the furniture that's around us. So we talk about that side of it. We also talk about the manufacturing side of the cigar industry, and really the most important part, which is the people. We talk about the mutual aid societies, we talk about the different immigrant groups that came here, and we talk about the experience that they had in really building a city and nurturing a culture that is very unique in the South particularly, but really in this country. And it's reflective of this country and how a lot of immigrants coming together for kind of one common purpose, which is making a city and making an industry. In addition to that, on the second floor, we've got lots of other things. We have an area devoted to the citrus industry, another area devoted to the cattle industry, a whole area devoted to the military history of our region called War Stories. We've got a timeline because nothing else is really done chronologically, and so we've kind of got everything all wrapped up in a nice confined space so you can know what happened when and put everything into context. And so we also have a temporary exhibit gallery, nice bookstore, museum store, really everything you need right here under one roof.
Well, that's wonderful, and you've done such a great job preserving the area's history. Thank you so much, Rodney. You've been incredibly helpful. And I just have one more person who I need to speak with before I can put this film back into storage. I'm at the home of Joseph Russo, the star of Flower of Tampa. I'm going to go in and meet with him and learn more about the film.
Good morning.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Yes. How are you?
I'm here with Joseph Russo, who was the star of the Flower of Tampa in 1958. Joe, thank you so much for talking with us today about this film. Can you tell me more about it and how you became involved with it?
Yes, at the time I was in television. I was working for WTVT, and there was a friend of mine who was also a former student at the University of Tampa, a fellow by the name of Tony Garcia. And Tony came to me because I had had acting experience at the university, and I had done television work on camera. And he came to me one day and said, Joe, they're going to do a film about the cigar industry in Tampa. Would you be interested in trying out for it? And I said, of course. So he put me in touch with, I believe, the folks that did the filming were out of Sarasota, Swain Photography. And they interviewed me, and lo and behold, I got the part. The purpose was to publicize the fact that Tampa was the cigar capital of the world. And it was commissioned by the Chamber of Commerce. After it was produced, it was sent throughout the country to let people in other parts of the United States know, first of all, about Tampa and what it was known for. That was at the time when Tampa was really the cigar capital of the cigar industry, because there were cigar buildings and producers throughout the entire Tampa Bay area. Many of the large cigar companies were based here. And it was a film that was used primarily for publicity services. As a consequence of the film, when I went into the community, many people would see me and say, you know, last night I had the television set on and I saw the Flower of Tampa and you were in it. And that even happens to the current day. Not quite as frequently as it did then, but it does happen.
That's great. You know, I was watching the film, and one of the things you notice in the film is there are so many well-known areas of Tampa in it, like Bayshore Boulevard and Ybor City. And how would you say that Tampa has changed since then?
Well, Tampa has changed dramatically. I now do some substitute work out at the Tampa International Airport, and I remember in 1958 we had a small airport, very small. Today, Tampa International Airport is known throughout the world, and it's a most beautiful place. Bayshore Boulevard at that time, during the Christmas season, they had a series of huge postcards, and they referred to this as Christmas Card Lane. And you would take your children. At that point, I didn't have any children, but those that did would take their children during the Christmas season, go by these postcards, and enjoy the scenery that way. Of course, at that time, the railroad industry was rather strong, and there were a lot of people coming into Tampa via the railroad. And what is today Kennedy Boulevard was known as Grand Central. So there have been a number of changes. We certainly didn't have any, to the best of my recollection, we didn't have any 25-story buildings,
Right.
you know, 25 stories high, like we have the tall buildings today.
And you know, I'm curious about learning a little bit more about some of the people who starred in the film with you. I found these photographs in our archive, and I was hoping maybe you could shed some light on some of the other actors who were in the film with you, and maybe the crew and your locations, some different things like that.
Yes. The female lead was, some of you may be familiar with Gail Gallardo on WFLA. It was her mother, and Joanne, and she was the female lead. And then there was Helen Gordon Davis, who was my aunt, and she was active in Little Theater just as I was at that time, and that was part of the reason why we were both cast, because we were actors, although we were not unionized or anything like that. We were actors at the local level, because at that point they didn't have anything like Strauss Center right now. Mm-hmm. You know, it was all Little Theater work. But Joanne was the female lead. I played the part of the young man who had gone to Cuba to study, to learn how to put together cigars, and then came back to Tampa. On the drive along Bayshore Boulevard, Helen and I spent many minutes talking about Tampa, because she was originally from New York, just as I was, and she talked about the fact that she was happy to live in Tampa, and I said, well, so am I. And I was very happy to be here, because that's where I met my wife, future wife, and this is where I finally settled and never went to another city to live.
So after you saw the final edited version of The Flower of Tampa, what did you think about it?
I thought it was wonderful. I was glad I had the opportunity to take part in it, to be one of the people who helped to make this film, and I was very proud to be a member of the Tampa community. So as a matter of fact, my wife was in one of the scenes that we shot at Las Novedades. The film was shot all the way through Tampa at various locations. We shot at the Columbia Restaurant, which was shown in the picture that you showed a minute ago. It was shot at Las Novedades, which was a very popular Spanish restaurant at that time. It was shot in Ybor City at a number of factories. It was shot in West Tampa, along Bayshore Boulevard. So it really enabled me to learn more about Tampa, because I was not that familiar with the cigar factories. Although I'd been on Bayshore, I never realized what a beautiful, beautiful drive that is until that time. And it just made a difference in my life. Tampa was a wonderful place to have a family, to raise a family, and a wonderful community to be part of.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this with us today. We really appreciate it, and it's really helped me learn more about this film, which we have in our archives, The Flower of Tampa. So I really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us for Out of the Archives. Tampa has a rich history, and it's been fun sharing some of it with you. To learn more about the history of the Tampa Bay area, visit the Tampa Bay History Center located at 801 Old Water Street. For all of us at the City of Tampa Archives and Records Division, I'm Jennifer Dietz.